Ever wondered about a place where history lives in the land itself? A place where civilizations rose and fell, empires flourished and faded, and a major religion was born? In this video, part of a series, we'll dive into the whole story of the Middle East, from ancient beginnings to the world we know today. What happened here, and why does it still matter? Let's find out. Thousands of years ago, long before modern cities and nations, people in the Middle East built the first known civilizations. This happened in a region called Mesopotamia, which means land between rivers. These rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, flowed through what is now Iraq. The land was fertile, making it perfect for farming. People settled there, grew crops, and formed the first villages. The Sumerians were the first major group to settle in Mesopotamia around 3100 BCE. They built large cities like Ur, Uruk, and Lagash. Each city was independent and ruled by its own king. These city-states had massive temples called ziggurats, dedicated to their gods. The Sumerians were also great inventors. They created cuneiform, the first known system of writing. At first, they used it for trade and taxes, but soon they started writing down laws, myths, and even poetry. The most famous piece of Sumerian literature is the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's earliest stories. They also developed irrigation systems to control the rivers, built wheeled carts for transport, and created a mathematical system based on 60, which is why we have 60 minutes in an hour today. By 2334 BCE, a powerful leader named Sargon of Akkad rose to power. He conquered the Sumerian city-states and united them under his rule, creating the first known empire in history. His kingdom, the Akkadian Empire, stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. Sargon was a skilled ruler who kept control through a strong army and a centralized government. The Akkadians adopted much of Sumerian culture, including writing and religion, but they spoke a different language. The Akkadian Empire lasted for about 200 years before it collapsed due to internal struggles and invasions. After the fall of the Akkadians, different groups fought for control of Mesopotamia. By 1792 BCE, a king named Hammurabi took over and made Babylon the most powerful city. He is best remembered for creating Hammurabi's Code, one of the first recorded legal systems in history. Hammurabi's laws covered everything from trade and marriage to crime and punishment. The idea was simple: justice should be clear and fair. However, the punishments were often harsh. The most famous principle from his code is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, meaning that the punishment should fit the crime. Babylon under Hammurabi was well organized. He built roads, improved irrigation, and encouraged trade. After his death, though, the Babylonian Empire weakened and was eventually conquered by other groups, such as the Kassites for a while, but eventually it became part of the Assyrian Empire around the 9th century BCE. The Assyrians, originally from northern Mesopotamia, became one of history's most feared military powers, using iron weapons, siege tactics, and brutal warfare. Their capital, Nineveh, became a center of learning and culture. The Assyrians ruled with an iron fist, crushing revolts and deporting conquered peoples to maintain control. However, their harsh rule led to widespread resentment. In 612 BCE, a coalition of Babylonians and Medes destroyed Nineveh, ending Assyrian dominance. Despite their brutality, the Assyrians also made great achievements. They built massive palaces, roads, and libraries. The most famous is the Library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, which contained thousands of clay tablets with knowledge from across the empire. After the fall of the Assyrians, Babylon rose again under King Nebuchadnezzar II, 605 to 562 BCE. He made Babylon one of the greatest cities of the ancient world. He is best known for the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, though historians debate if it truly existed. These ancient cultures shaped Middle Eastern history and influenced later empires like the Persians, Greeks, and Romans. While empires rose and fell in Mesopotamia, another important story was evolving, one that would change the future of religion and culture in the Middle East. The Hebrews, a group of nomadic people, believed in one God, which was completely different from the polytheistic religions around them. This belief eventually became Judaism, one of the oldest monotheistic religions in the world. After the Hebrews settled in Canaan, they formed 2 kingdoms, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The Kingdom of Israel emerged around the 10th century BCE, and its capital was initially established in Samaria. Meanwhile, Judah, with its capital in Jerusalem, became a separate entity. These kingdoms were often at odds with each other, but also faced common threats from powerful neighboring empires. Around 722 BCE, the northern kingdom of Israel was conquered by the Assyrians. To stop any future rebellions, the Assyrians forced many of the Israelites to leave their land and moved them to other parts of the empire. This caused the 10 northern tribes to fade from history, a mystery often called the Lost Tribes of Israel. Judah, though smaller and weaker, managed to last longer but was finally conquered by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. The Babylonians destroyed Jerusalem and the First Temple, which was a major turning point in Jewish history. Many Judeans were taken to Babylon and forced to live there under Babylonian control. This period is known as the Babylonian exile and lasted nearly 50 years, becoming a defining moment in Jewish history. Without their homeland or temple, the exiled Judeans focused on preserving their identity through their traditions, laws, and writings. Many religious texts were compiled or refined during this time, laying the foundation for what would later become the Hebrew Bible. Despite their exile, the Judeans were not treated as slaves. They were allowed to live and work in Babylon, and some even became successful within the empire. In 539 BCE, after nearly 5 decades, the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. Unlike the Babylonians and Assyrians, the Persians ruled with a more tolerant approach. Cyrus allowed many displaced peoples, including the Judeans, to return to their lands. This marked the beginning of the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the construction of the Second Temple. During this time, a new religion, Zoroastrianism, became the official faith of the Persian Empire. It was founded by the prophet Zoroaster and taught that there was one supreme god, Ahura Mazda, who was in a constant battle with evil. Many ideas from Zoroastrianism, like heaven, hell, and the struggle between good and evil, would later influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Persian Empire lasted for about 200 years, but in the late 4th century BCE, a new conqueror arrived: Alexander the Great. In 334 BCE, Alexander the Great, the king of Macedon, began a war against the Persian Empire. Within a few years, he had defeated the Persians and taken control of the entire Middle East. His rule introduced Greek culture, language, and customs to the region, a process known as Hellenization. After Alexander's death in 323 BCE, his empire was divided among his generals. The Middle East was fought over by 2 powerful kingdoms, the Seleucid Empire, based in Syria, and the Ptolemaic Kingdom, based in Egypt. Judah changed hands between them several times. The Seleucids pushed Greek culture aggressively, which caused tension with the local Jewish population. This conflict peaked under Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who tried to ban Jewish religious practices. In response, a Jewish group called the Maccabees rebelled and won back control of their land in 164 BCE. This led to a brief period of Jewish self-rule under the Hasmonean dynasty. They eventually struggled with internal conflicts, and by 63 BCE, Rome took over. The Romans invaded in 63 BCE, making Judea part of their empire. At first, they allowed local rulers like Herod the Great to govern under their control, but their heavy taxes and interference angered the Jewish population. In 66 CE, a large-scale Jewish revolt broke out against Roman rule. The Romans responded brutally, and in 70 CE, they destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem, a huge loss for the Jewish people.
We surrender. We just want to go.
We let you use your own laws, your own religion. We respected your culture, your way of life. We protected you, and you prospered. But you mistook that generosity for weakness. Now you will find out what happens to those who break the peace of Rome.
After the Bar Kokhba revolt, the Romans crushed the rebellion with extreme brutality. Many Jews were killed, towns were destroyed, and Jewish access to Jerusalem was banned. The Romans renamed Judea to Syria Palestina, attempting to erase its Jewish identity. While some Jews remained in Galilee and other areas, many migrated over time due to economic hardship and persecution, leading to the expansion of the Jewish diaspora across the Roman world. By the 2nd century CE, the Middle East was firmly under Roman control. But over the next few centuries, the region was marked by ongoing conflicts between the Romans and the Persians, the spread of Christianity, and the weakening of both empires. setting the stage for the rise of a new religious movement in Arabia that would change the region forever: Islam.